So we had talked under the Eisenhower administration. John Foster Dulles brought up this idea of massive retaliation, going to the edge of the war, right? In hopes that what would happen to the other side. They would back down. But what's going to happen is we are going to get to the pinnacle of the Cold War with the Cuban Missile Crisis and in the Vietnam War. And this is going to lead Kennedy to changing to flexible response. That we don't need to necessarily go out with all our nukes to make the other side back down. We could go in with special forces like y'all saw on your study guide, like the Green Berets, and be able to combat those situations. So if y'all realize, like in the Obama administration, when they went in to get Saddam, they used special forces. This all originates from the Kennedy administration. We're having issues with Cuba. We know Fulgencio Batista has been pro-American, but many of the people in Cuba are really upset because American businessmen are not reinvesting their money in Cuba. They're taking it back to America, and the Cuban people want it to be reinvested. And so people like Che Guevara and Fidel Castro start rising up saying that the government should confiscate all the American properties, nationalize it so that Cuba could be prosperous. And so they do that. Batista's thrown out. Many Americans, pro-Americans, flee to Florida, and we're going to see we will break diplomatic relations with them. In the Eisenhower administration, they were planning an invasion. They were training ex-Cubans to go back and overthrow Castro. And we were supposed to give them air support. Do you think we're going to give them air support? We don't, because at this time, we know Cuba starts an alliance with who? The Soviet Union. So could this bring us into direct conflict if we send in our troops? And so this planned invasion with our Cuban exiles is called the Bay of Pigs. We're supposed to send in, but actually all we do is we chauffeur them there and we're saying, okay, good luck, and we leave. They will know through espionage that they're coming in, and what is going to happen to these Cuban exiles? Are they going to be successful? Nearly half of them are executed and prisoners of war. This thus makes Kennedy look how in his foreign policy? Strong or weak? Weak. And this sets up why Khrushchev wants to push around at Vienna JFK and say, give up Berlin. And so we're going to see that JFK refused to send in air support, and that is why he's going to look weak. And what will occur? His first attempt in foreign policy is a failure. But again, was this Bay of Pigs invasion something he planned? It was something he carried over from the Eisenhower administration. So relationships between Cuba and the United States will begin to sour. And again, we know why Khrushchev wanted to befriend Cuba, because what did he want to put in Cuba? Missiles, just like we had missiles where? In Turkey and Greece. So we're going to see Castro is going to be put further into alliance with Khrushchev, and we're going to see that they're BFFs now. And this will lead us down to the Cuban Missile Crisis. One of the things that y'all had on your study guide was the Vienna Conference. Khrushchev now views Kennedy as weak, and they're going to meet to talk about the problem in Berlin. So y'all know Berlin is within the Soviet sector. So if I divide up Germany, this is my bad Germany, right? We know the French have a sector, the British have a sector, the US have a sector, and then the Soviet Union has a sector. Who united their sectors? There's three nations that unite. They unite their sectors, right? So this becomes one big sector, right? And that becomes West Germany. The Soviet Union sector becomes what? But the problem within the Soviet Union lays Berlin. Berlin is the capital city, and it's been divided up into four. There's a Soviet sector, a French sector, a British sector, a US sector. And what do you think they're going to do with their sectors over there? Unite them. And when they unite them, many people who are in the Soviet Union, who are in East Germany, they realize what the Soviets are doing. Are they rebuilding Germany? They're slowly taking out all the resources and taking it back into the Soviet Union. So if you saw the industry of your nation going away, basically your job's also going away, do you want to stay there? So people looked at West Berlin as a escape place. That if they wanted to get out of the Soviet Union, come to West Berlin, get out of the Soviet Union there. And so does this look good for propaganda that people are fleeing our nation through West Berlin? No, in a sea of communism, this is a sea of democracy. And so Khrushchev wants to meet with JFK in Vienna, which a lot of you had that one missing on your study guide, to demand that they give up West Berlin. Do you think Kennedy wants to do that? He's just looked weak in Cuba. And now he says, no, we will stand with Berlin. We are not going to give it up. And we've seen before what has happened in Berlin when they tried to take Berlin the first time in Truman's administration. We did the what? Airlift. But now to stop the hemorrhage, before nuclear war, which is threatened. Oh, there was better maps up here. I'm sorry, guys. What's going to happen is, this was that whole hemorrhaging of people that I talked about. Okay? What's going to happen is this is going to lead to the building of the Berlin Wall. Okay? To stop that hemorrhage. So now people are going to be perpetually stuck. And on y'all's, remember your interview questions? This is one of them you could ask when the Berlin Wall falls. It eventually falls. Y'all were born in the 2000s, right? So 10 years before y'all were born, this is when the Berlin Wall falls.
My mom has a piece of it.
Really? If you go to A&M, in front of Papa Bush's library, there's a piece of the Berlin Wall. If you go to the one in UT, in LBJ's, there's a piece of the Berlin Wall. So every single president that lived during the Berlin Wall's time has a piece of the wall on there. Okay, so Kennedy's response is he's going to go to Berlin, and he's going to learn German, and he's going to do a speech, and he screws it up. Because the way, if you know German, German is an inflective language. Okay, so y'all ever heard Hitler, right? When he sounds, it's very inflective. What he says is, he says, all free men, wherever they may live, are citizens of Berlin. Therefore, as a free man, I take pride in the words, Ich bin ein Berliner. Basically, what that means is, I am a Berliner. But where he afflicts on the bin in, it's a type of donut. So everybody's like, he says like, I'll show you a little video of it where he inflicts it. Basically, he just said, I'm a jelly donut. And everybody's like, yes, you're delicious too. But yeah, don't say things in other languages. Okay, so that's what we learned from this. Okay, so unless you're really good at that language. Okay, so what we're gonna see is, we know the Soviet Union, Khrushchev and Castro are like BFFs. And so he has started to put nuclear weapons in Cuba because we have put them where? In Turkey and Greece. And so the Soviets, what we're going to realize is they've been transporting these parts, and Kennedy is going to be made aware of the missiles. Do y'all see where the missiles are? Do y'all see where the transporters and the cylinder tanks and all the other stuff? We have planes that are going over and giving us this information. So Kennedy, now he feels threatened, right? Are we getting to nuclear chicken? We have missiles there, they have missiles here. And again, 2 minutes, 2.5 minutes away from DFW area, 5 minutes away from DC, right? We're on the edge of war. And so Kennedy's response to this is he's gonna demand that Khrushchev remove the weapons. Oh, how would that make Khrushchev look? Weak. Do you think Khrushchev just wants to move the weapons? If he moves his weapons, what should we do? Move ours. And so he says, if you don't do this, there will be war. And he puts up a quarantine. Okay? What do we know about history? About our boats? If our boat is blown up, we are going to what? War. And so to checkmate us at this time, we put a naval quarantine. He sends out submarines from the Soviet Union. Right? Amidst their submarines coming, our submarines are tailing them. They're not sending out their missiles yet, but they could send out charges. Do y'all know what a charge is? It just basically sends out like a vibration in the water. And that's what it's doing. So what do you think our boat's trying to do? Get the other boat to do what? Fight back. If they attack first, then what could the U.S. do? Attack back. And so our ships are provoking them. Amidst the 13 days that this negotiations are going on, it takes about that long for their submarine to get here. Our submarines are following them. Khrushchev and Kennedy are sitting down negotiating. Khrushchev says, look, I'll remove the missiles if you remove yours, right? And so basically for 13 days, people thought the world was going to end. And remember I told you I had an interview question with my mom. I asked her about how did they feel about the Cuban Missile Crisis. And my grandfather had him in the backyard trying to dig a bomb shelter, a hole for a bomb shelter, because most people felt that it was going to end. People are doing drills inside their school, duck and cover. Are y'all ready? No, y'all not ready to duck and cover? No, y'all haven't had to duck and cover ever? I'll show you the video that was showed at this time. Huh?
Just like ducking under the desk?
I'll show you the cartoon that the kids were shown at this time period about how to duck and cover. So this desk will save you, okay? The crisis will end when Khrushchev and Kennedy basically negotiate that the U.S. would remove missiles out of where? Cuba. Well, Soviet Union would move them out of Cuba. We would remove them out of Turkey secretly, and that we would not attack Cuba. Okay, we were on the edge of the war. And so the legacy of this is that this is the turning point. Relations are going to ease down. We're going to see that the superpowers basically felt that we were at the edge of nuclear chicken, right? And what they're going to agree to is moving to a portion where we could both talk to each other. The first thing is the hotline that will be established. There is a red phone in the United States. There's a red phone in the Soviet Union. They could pick up the phone and negotiate with each other, okay? The other thing is the limited test ban treaty, that we're going to ban tests in the atmosphere, okay? Are we easing Cold War tensions? So basically we cannot create new bombs because we can't test them above ground. And so we see that this is the easing of Cold War tensions.